'Tis the season to celebrate, and for many that means raising a glass full of holiday cheer. But if that glass contains alcohol, there is a lot to consider involving liability. And today's Injuries Are Personal with Carl Reynolds Law. Attorney Carl Reynolds is here to talk about the civil consequences of drinking and driving. We've been told forever, obviously,
right,
a terrible idea to begin with, but
correct,
legally it opens up a lot of different issues.
Sure.
So let's talk about holiday parties, and let's say you're throwing a party.
Okay.
And people are imbibing.
Yes, they are.
And
so let's read the statute so that we could talk a little bit about it. It's under a term called dram shop liability, okay? And it used to be, before it was codified in statute, kind of limiting it where a bar or a restaurant or even a private individual, if they provided an open bar sort of scenario, then they could be liable for the drunk actions of the person that was intoxicated. But there's a statute, 768.125, and actually reads not too much legalese. And what it says is a person who sells or furnishes alcohol, so sells or furnishes, so a party, okay?
Party, yep.
To a person of lawful drinking age shall not therefore become liable for injury or damage caused by or resulting from the intoxication of such person, except that a person who willfully and unlawfully sells or furnishes alcohol beverage to a person who is not of lawful drinking age. So if you have teenagers over your house, someone under the age of 21, and you have alcohol access to them, you could be held liable for furnishing that alcohol. The other issue is if you knowingly serve a person who is habitually addicted to the use of any alcohol. So if you know you got the proverbial drunk uncle, and you know he's been out of rehab and everything, and you provide him alcohol and he goes out and causes harm, you could then be liable for having the holiday party that the drunk uncle ended up going and hurting somebody.
Over-serving is not mentioned in that statute, and I know that's something that becomes an issue. I know bars will say no to people, I understand, with they've been over-served at a holiday party at one of our homes, so I'm not responsible for making sure that you don't have too much to drink. How does that work?
So it's based on circumstances, so you got to look at the circumstance. The person is barely able to walk out the door, then there could be some additional civil liability based on the circumstances, of the scenario, and knowingly putting someone drunk behind the wheel and not intervening or not providing some sort of alternative. So obviously the person who's intoxicated is on the hook civilly as well as criminally, and the civil consequences can be quite severe. It carries with it what's called punitive damages under the law, where the law wants to punish this sort of activity. So if you injure someone, that person has the right to get basically up to triple the amount they would normally get for the damages caused, because it was a morally reprehensible conduct that resulted in the harm.
Got it. Now,
so, and it's not just, we talk about drinking and driving. It's not just intoxicated through alcohol. It could be high through marijuana or drugs or something like that as well. And if, God forbid, you're pursuing some sort of felony activity, if you're fleeing the law or something like that, that also carries with it civil punitive damages.
I know this becomes an issue for many companies having holiday parties, not wanting to bring on the liability of anything. How does it work from that setting about liability? That's
where it gets tricky, and that's where a lot of fights in the courtroom are. If you have a company party and you provide an open bar scenario, and then that person goes and injures somebody, is the company now on the hook? Typically, a company's on the hook only for activities that are within the course and scope of employment. But if this is kind of a mandatory holiday party, they were there, the open bar was there, especially if they were put behind the wheel of a company-provided vehicle, then you've got some liability on the company, and that's where a lot of fights are. The best scenario is, if you're going to provide an open bar sort of scenario by a company, make sure everyone has an alternative ride home.
Right, or make sure everybody has transportation of some sort provided to them.
Yeah, Uber, provide taxis, or have a designated driver that knows, just drinking Coke and Sprite or something.
And the good news is it's easier than ever to do that with rideshare services.
Absolutely.
So it makes it a little easier to still enjoy the holiday season. For any information about your legal questions, you can find Carl and his team by going to injuriesarepersonal.com. We'll be back.